I love that you said, you're having grown up in California made it a little bit easier for you to transition into kind of that metropolitan area on the other side of the world. And I remember when we first learned that you were going overseas, and I was like, "Are you ready to live in a hut?" And you were like, "I'm going to be in a big city."
I think you actually came and visited us and
I
came
should-
into our apartment and you said, "This isn't a hut." So it's been a 13-year running.
It's a bit I'm doing.
It's a bit. Yeah, it was not a hut by any means. It was
No,
a
it
very large
wasn't.
building in a very large city. So not all And honestly, my wife and I, we could not live in a hut in the jungle. I think there was a time in my life, this is part of my calling, when I thought being a missionary meant doing the hardest thing that you're going to hate. And for me, that would be in the mud with the bugs.
Yeah.
Some people would love that, like
Mhm.
the outdoorsy person. The Lord is using their outdoorsiness and my indoorsiness
Yes.
for His glory. Like I'm a city. I love being in big cities.
Yeah.
I love being in urban centers. So, I think both are needed in missionary work.
Yeah.
Welcome to the GC Collective podcast, brought to you by the California Southern Baptist Convention. From local missions to global impact, we explore the vision, passion, and heart behind our collective movement in California and around the world. Where better together isn't just a motto, it's how we maximize our impact in fulfilling the Great Commission.
Hello, California Southern Baptist family. Welcome back to the GC Collective podcast. If you're on our YouTube channel today, you're going to notice something a little bit different. We are off camera today because we have one of our California born and raised IMB missionaries who is going to be on our show today under an alias, correct? So Eric White, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. Good to be here.
We're going to talk a little bit about your time overseas, some drama that has happened recently that brings you back stateside. But before we get to that, there is one event that I want to make sure goes on everybody's radar. In less than a month, Church Matters is going to be hosting their Fostering Church webinar. And so I'm going to cut to Jason Robertson telling us a little bit about that event, why you want to be signing up for it. So go ahead and give that a listen.
Hi, this is Jason Robertson, the director of Renew California. I remember the days when churches were often in competition with one another. That mindset still shows up in parts of the Bible Belt, but here in California, we're learning something better. We recognize that every church matters, and churches are discovering strategic, gospel-centered ways to help their sister churches thrive. Think about it, churches helping other churches. In fact, Charles Spurgeon once wisely observed, "A church is never stronger than when it strengthens another." Church fostering, have you heard about it? Church fostering is emerging as one of the most fruitful models for helping congregations move toward renewed organizational health and even renewed gospel mission. In fact, we invite you to join an upcoming webinar hosted by CSBC's Renew California, where we will walk through practical, actionable steps for churches that want to help other churches. During this session, we will cover a variety of topics like how to identify and assess a potential partner church, or when is fostering the right revitalization pathway. We'll also talk about some practical matters like how to draft a clear ministry partnership agreement, and we will discuss some of the common challenges and even best practices. So please join us and even consider inviting others to be part of this webinar. Here are the details. It will be a Microsoft Teams webinar on Monday, February the 9th at 6:30 p.m. That's right. It'll take place in the evening because so many of our pastors are bivocational. We're going to do it on a Monday evening, February the 9th at 6:30 p.m. It's free, no cost. This is part of the efforts of the Renew California. And I will be joined by Brandon Moore and Jimbo Stewart and David Jackson, who are part of this fostering movement all across America. And so they're going to help us learn what we need to know in order to join this movement. So please visit the CSBC website or our other media platforms to get more information to make sure that you sign up and get ready for this webinar. And I hope to see you soon.
Okay, so Eric, fun fact for our listeners, I have known you since you were a wee tiny thing. Your family has been friends with my family since you were, what, 6th grade?
I think I was 8th grade.
Okay, 8th grade.
Yeah.
And you were one of my students
Yep.
when I was doing youth ministry.
We won't talk about how long ago that was, though. We'll just say back in the past.
Back in the day,
Yeah.
yes. And actually, your siblings as well were also very much a part of the youth group back then. And you were really an important player in the youth group, I remember. You were very reliable. You guys were always there. Your whole family has a heart to serve. And I have vivid memories of us being on mission trips, doing vacation Bible schools, and you were the host. And one in particular, like, you and I, we were in sync, and I'd be like, stretch or cut or whatever, and you were like always right there. So reliable, even as a high schooler.
Well, I learned a lot from you in those days. I know this isn't like praise Sarah time, but it's always good to give honor where honor's due. Learned a lot from you about leadership. You pushed me on some things to step into things or take some ownership or leadership responsibilities. So I appreciate that and appreciate how the Lord used you in my life and my siblings' lives as well. So those mission trips, we can get back to this, but those mission trips were important in my life as well.
I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing. So you have been overseas and as an IMB missionary for several years now. Tell us a little bit about where you've been, what you were doing there. And again, because we're working with an alias here, we're not going to be able to be too terribly specific, but share what you can.
Yeah. So my wife and I were sent by our church that's in Southern California to Central Asia back in 2012. And since then, we've lived in and served in a country there. For folks that don't know what Central Asia is, it's not the center of China. Right. Asia's much bigger than that. It's actually majority Muslim countries just to the west of China and east of Europe, south of Russia, and north of the Middle East.
Okay.
So we also call it Obscuristan because it's all these stan countries that people are typically less familiar with. Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, parts of Iran and Iraq, Turkey, Pakistan, places like that.
Yeah.
So non-Arab Muslim contexts. And we moved there, having never been there, having never stepped foot in that part of the world, and by God's grace, landed on a great team that was doing really good work. For the last 13 years, we've sought to help start and strengthen churches there. For the first 8 years, we were working amongst a minority language group. So we learned one language, and then I started to learn the second language after that.
Wow.
And then about 5-6 years ago, we shifted roles and moved to a mega city in that part of the world, where I was leading the strategy for the work in the city and outside the city, trying to see our teams working in and through churches. Again, just wanting to see them established and equipped. Central Asia as a whole is a very, very unreached context. 98.9% Muslim. And then the other 1 point something percent are other folk religions or things like that. So the number of Christians is very small. There's, in our country where we served, there was fewer than 10,000 believers. But by God's grace, in the last 40 years, there's actually been exponential growth in that part of the world. Faster growth than was seen in the book of Acts, actually.
Really?
If the book of Acts is something like a 3% growth rate, Central Asia and our country specifically has been at like a 10% growth rate. So just growing rapidly in some sense, and yet the work is very, very, very slow.
Yeah.
The soil is very hard. So when we're evangelizing, I tell people that we need to deconstruct everything they know about Jesus, because it's not a place where they've never heard about Jesus. They heard about him and know him, and they think a lot of things about him that aren't true. based upon the Quran. So we have to deconstruct that and construct a biblical understanding of the triune God, who the Father sent the Son to save his people. So that's what we've been doing for the last 13 years. Lots more I could talk about there, but that's kind of an overview.
Yeah, so you really, when you go to serve in that kind of a context, you're playing the long game there.
Yeah, definitely. Decades. Try to just encourage people that your first term there is just about learning language and culture and coming back for your second term.
Wow.
And for most Central Asian languages, you're not going to be able to disciple someone deeply, help someone whose marriage is falling apart, who's struggling with addiction, who's not a faithful member of a church. You're not going to disciple them through those things until probably year 5, 6, 7 of language, just because the nuances and the ability we'll always sound like foreigners, but we want to be a welcomed outsider. So to get to that point takes typically 5 to 8 years. So just that alone is a marathon. Then we're talking about establishing churches in a place where for generations, they've not been Christians. For hundreds of years, their people have been Muslims.
And in a very strong Muslim context, then how difficult is it for someone to become a believer, even if they're bought in? I'm guessing there's some family circumstances there.
Yeah, in the country where we served, there's no exact number, but it's something like when someone first hears the gospel to when do they believe, it's typically 7-year process for them just to understand, deconstruct those things I talked about, accept Christ. Now with the internet, I think that's speeding up a little bit because the internet is a neutral thing that can be used for evil and used for good.
Sure.
So part of the way it's being used for good is people can research online. They can find resources. They can find videos and podcasts and books. That was part of my ministry, was helping translate good books that people could get a hold of. So that's speeding up the process a little bit of just researching Christianity. But then once they come to faith, there's a range from that doesn't matter, they just write you off, your family, to threatening your life, locking you in your room. I know a believer who was locked in her room for 2 years, her family trying to convince her to dismiss her faith, to reject Christ. Just this year, a church where I was serving as an elder, we were about to baptize a sister. It was the day of her baptism. She comes from a very secular family. They've traveled to Europe. They're kind of loosely Muslim. She works for a global corporation. You would think, oh, her family's not going to care at all.
Right.
Her dad called her that morning and said, if you go through with this, I'm disowning you as my daughter and cutting you off from our relationship financially, and you're never going to see your sister again. And so there we were as pastors and church members coming around her, trying to just say, sister, this is not a rush. Let's wait and see. You can calm down. And she was very worked up, of course. But after calming down and just the encouragement of the body, she decided to go through with getting baptized that day.
Wow. Yeah,
her story's a lot longer story, but that is more typical than not in our context.
Wow. Yeah, that is really hard. You have a lot of things fighting against your work over there.
Satan is active and knows very clearly the sensitive parts of the battle lines, and he's not going to let those battle lines go easily. So he's active and using whatever means he can.
Well, let's back up a little bit and talk about your calling. Like I said, I've known you for a really long time, and I think everybody knew you were going to go into ministry. That was never, a question. And even I'm struggling to go back and think, do I really know, what God was doing that led him to global missionary work? Tell us a little bit about, your coming through and ending up over there.
Yeah, looking back, there's a million things going on, right? John Piper talks about the Lord is doing 1,000 things in our lives at once, and we're aware of maybe one or two of them.
Right.
And in hindsight,
Yeah.
you can look back and see how the Lord was working. I could talk about John Piper books like Let the Nations Be Glad, or
Yep.
David Platt books,
Mhm.
or missionary biographies, Adoniram Judson's To the Golden Shore by Courtney Anderson. Super vital in that process. But I think if there were two things that I'd point back to that the Lord used, it would be my parents. Oh, man. I didn't think I was
Yeah.
going to tear up.
Don't make me cry now.
My parents and the local churches that I was a part of. So my parents, faithful to share the gospel with us from day one.
Yep.
I played baby Jesus in the nativity when I was a month old. So like we were in church. Not that that had anything to do with my salvation, but it's true. We were active in the church. My parents were faithful to teach us the word, teach us the gospel. And we were always in churches that valued missions, had missionaries coming
Yes.
in. And some of my first memories in church are missionaries coming through the church that we were part of. And then my dad took me on my first international mission trip when I was 12 years old to Chile, to Latin America, and my eyes were opened. The world was much bigger. Even though California is a very diverse place,
Yeah.
I was still living in my bubble in some ways and just recognizing Lord opening my eyes to the needs of the world. We went to work at a camp there at 12 years old. I don't think I was very helpful. So the missionaries were very kind to welcome a team that had 12-year-olds on it. But the
Yeah.
Lord used that in my journey for sure to just place something in my heart, a desire. And then it was a 10 to 12-year process of every year from that point forward. Shortly after that, we started attending the church where you were already, Sarah. And each of those years, I went on a short-term mission trip. And typically, they were cross-culturally in some way. And the Lord was just building up a desire within me to be about His glory among the nations. Congruently, I've known my wife, actually. You've known my wife longer than I have. But her calling, I think, starts later in life, starts in university for her. But I think fast forward through a lot of different things, what the Lord used was, and this is theologically how I would explain it, it was the Spirit of God applying the Word of God among the people of God. And I think that's how I would describe calling. In our individualistic, subjective society, it can be really hard to pin down calling.
Yeah.
Someone might feel called to something, but if no one else around them is affirming that, I would say maybe they're not, or
Right.
maybe they should wait, especially if their local church is not affirming that. So I think the Lord was building up the desire within us. We were seeing it in His Word, the Great Commission, His desire to see His name be made known among the nations, for His glory to be spread. And then that was being affirmed by those around us. First, at our local church, as they were affirming us serving in ministry leadership.
Yeah.
And then as we talked about a desire to go to the nations, that was affirmed. I had multiple youth directors too, who themselves were sent as missionaries to the field, who you know as well.
IMB missionaries.
Yeah, IMB missionaries even. So I think those three things just converged when I was in seminary. Just that desire within, that the Spirit was working in our heart, a desire to obey God's word and seeing it plainly in His word, and then our church specifically affirming us to go.
Yeah, I'm having a little special moment thinking like, wow, you used to be my student, and then we were coworkers.
Yeah.
As you were going through seminary. And now we're like denominational, like coworkers. Like, I don't know that that's a big deal, but it's a big deal to me.
Well,
how
let
the
it be a big deal.
evolution of
Yeah,
our
that's great.
like our ministry, the
Yeah.
trajectory of it and the
It's
evolution of it's really special.
Yeah, it is special. It's cool to see.
Yeah. So I think that our people should know. Tell us a little bit about your educational upbringing.
Yeah, so I am California Southern Baptist through and
Through
through.
and through.
The first 12 years of my life were in a more independent Baptist church, but then my family started going to a Southern Baptist church. I didn't know what that was, but at that point, but have just been so blessed by God through so many different Southern Baptist institutions.
Yeah.
So first the church that we were a part of, that then I was an intern at, then I was on staff at, and then we were eventually sent from. I went to California Baptist University.
Lance up.
Yeah, Lance up. It was not the university that it is now back when I went.
Everybody says that,
yeah,
no matter what generation you went through.
Well, those basketball games are fun to go to now. They were a little less fun. They were fun. They're smaller, I should say. So my wife and I went there. I actually followed my wife to CBU. And
Smart man.
Sarah, you actually helped me fill out my application
I
to
did?
CBU. If you forgot, I was going to a junior college, and you said, "Fill this out right now." And so, those of you that know Sarah,
Wow. Yeah, that sounds
that's
on brand.
Yeah, that's on brand for sure. So went to CBU. The Lord used that. Actually, that's when I first heard David Platt speak. Was at Cal Baptist.
I do remember you, being very drawn to David Platt.
Yes. Yeah. He quoted Romans 1-8 in that chapel and talked about God's glory among the nations. So that was definitely a moment that the Lord used. And then after that, I went to the institution formerly known as Golden Gate Seminary, now Gateway.
What does your diploma say?
It still says Golden Gate Theological Seminary. Maybe can I get a new one? I don't know. I should.
You should keep the old one.
I
It's
should keep the
special.
old one.
Yeah.
Maybe I get two. Yeah, that was a great time. I actually went to the Southern California campus, had professors there who were very meaningful. Professors who had served with the IMB, served at the same church, served as a professor there. That was instrumental in me thinking about Muslim work as well, and graduated with my MDiv from there. So very grateful for all the California Southern Baptist connections.
Yeah. And I do have to say, and I didn't, I was Southern, I've been Southern Baptist, but not like I am now, obviously, which is just other level. But I was your field mentor while you were at Gateway. And I was also field mentoring at the same time with another seminary student who was going to another local school. And the Gateway process had so much more rigor to it. I mean, exponentially more rigor to it. I actually wrote to them and said, y'all could learn a little bit from Gateway. And they responded and they said that I was right.
Oh, wow. That's good. If Southern Baptists can do anything, it's rigor and paperwork, right? Is that?
I mean, it was just so much more thoughtful and intentional and very ministry focused. And so I think that was probably one of the moments where I was like, oh, I'm a little bit prouder to be a Southern Baptist, So that's just extra.
Grateful for my time there for sure. And for the brothers and sisters I met while there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would not normally be here, but for sort of a sensational story, you were, we've been calling it, you got the boot from your country. I don't know if that's like the dream of a missionary to be so obviously faithful that the country sees you and says, you can't anymore. Tell us a little bit about what happened.
Yeah, I think there's probably a dozen or more reasons why a missionary might get kicked out of a country. Some of them for foolish reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully that's not true in my case. But yeah, after living there for 13 years, I came to the U.S. for a meeting with the IMB and some mobilization stuff. And got on my flight, or wanted to get on to my flight to fly back, and I wasn't allowed to. So the government of the country where we had been serving had put a ban on me even getting a boarding pass. But my wife and son were still back there at our home the country. So we had already been apart for 2 weeks, and I was there in the airport all by myself. And actually, it's an airport that doesn't allow people to stay
Oh, no.
overnight. So I had a worker come up to me as I was just soaking it all in and told me I had to leave the
Wow,
terminal.
not even time to process.
Not even, well, I had been there for hours.
Oh, okay.
Them trying 5 hours, they tried to get my boarding pass and couldn't figure it out for the longest time.
You can't get on, but you don't know why you can't get on.
Well,
Bro.
then what happened is I then got a ticket that was a layover in the city where we live and flying on to another place, and was able to get on that flight, tried to go through passport control, and was again denied, and they gave me like the official reason there
Oh.
why. The official reason is other.
I was going to say, what is the official reason?
Yeah, so that's kind of been typical, and it's typical in our work, honestly. I'm not the first missionary to get banned from a country, and I'm not the last.
For sure.
That just kind of comes with the job.
Right.
Um,
When they
it's-
first told you, did you kind of suspect because it's on your radar?
Yeah, it's on our radar. And even looking back in the process, I was just mad at the airline because they couldn't figure out my boarding
Yes.
pass. Probably sinned a little bit in my head towards them. But looking back, yeah, there were signs pointing to that, and then the realization that this is what's happening, because I've had coworkers and others who have gone through similar things. So that meant I was in a nearby country, and my wife and son had to pack up our home all by themselves.
Oh.
My father-in-law did fly out to help, and that was a huge help. And we had a great local church there and coworkers as well who helped. But kind of in an instant, we had to uproot our lives from the place that we had planned to stay in for decades.
Right.
Some of the hardest things were leaving our local church. We were in the midst of planting a national church there. My son had to say goodbye to his friends, the place he's known his whole life. He
Right.
went there as a 3-month-old. And then we also had to leave our dog behind, which is his best bud. Hard moments,
Yeah.
for sure. But the Lord has been kind to use his people, our church there, our sending church and partner churches here in the States, brothers and sisters who have been so encouraging to us. He's also taught us a lot about suffering in the midst of this. 1 Peter 4:19 has been, just a balm to my soul. It says, let those who suffer according to the will of God entrust their souls to a faithful creator while doing good. I feel like 16 sermons could be given
I know
on
that
one
while
verse.
doing good alone,
Yeah.
I feel like I can unpack that.
And the fact that let those who suffer according to God's will. It's not outside God's will that we got kicked out of our country. That government is responsible, but God is sovereign.
Yeah.
And he's working in and through that. I don't think if we didn't have a robust understanding and love for the providence of God in our lives, we wouldn't have lasted the 13 years in ministry in a hard place, and we wouldn't have been prepared for this season that we're going through now. So we're putting that belief to practice these days, as actually all Christians are called to do. When we suffer, recognize it's according to God's will.
Yeah.
Rest in his sovereignty and know that this is light, momentary affliction compared to the eternal weight of glory, that he is ultimately working all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purposes.
Yeah.
Lean into those truths. And so that's what my family's been trying to do in this season.
I think about that gal that you just mentioned who made that hard decision to get baptized, and knowing what that meant. And now, I'm assuming she's aware of what has happened, and, there's an impact there I don't even understand.
Yeah, from a distance, we've been, my wife got to attend that local church 3 more times, actually, those 3 Sundays over that 2-week period. And from a distance, I've been discipling those believers, really. And we've actually been able to teach them what lament looks like. Using a really great book, Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy by Mark Vagrop. He just talks about the process of lament and how God is He's big enough to take our complaints.
Mm-hmm.
And we complain, and yet we turn to him in trust. And so being able to take these all fairly new believers,
Yeah.
3 or 4 of them baptized this year, take them through that process, because the reality is, especially in their context, they're going to go through suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just asking the Lord to even use this experience in our lives, in their lives, to prepare them for whatever is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know suffering is all those who desire to live a godly life will be persecuted, says Paul. So suffering is a part of the Christian life until
Yeah.
Christ returns in victory.
So most of our listeners are church leaders, not necessarily all pastors, but sometimes you don't feel very connected to, the global missionary, and I'd love to talk a little bit about, when how does a church engage meaningfully with our missionaries? What are ways in which we can get connected? Because there's CP giving and there's Lottie giving, and that's one way. And
Yeah.
there's prayer, and that's another way. And they're both very meaningful. But sometimes I feel like there's probably more. And it doesn't matter what size your church is. Every church can be connected, right? In some way or another, support meaningfully in another way.
Yeah. Yeah. The great thing about the Cooperative Program and the IMB is that it's supported by thousands of churches.
Right.
The hard thing about it is there's thousands of churches to connect with. So in one sense, remind your folks of that you're a part of something bigger than just your local church.
Yeah.
That will be hopefully an encouragement to them. Remind them of Paul's letters. Philippians is a missionary support letter to a church that he hadn't seen in a while and didn't get to necessarily see a ton.
Huh.
So value those newsletters that missionaries are sending out. Not that we're putting them on the same authority as Scripture. My newsletters are not.
Was that ever in question?
Right. I just making sure
Okay.
when comparing to Philippians. But that is a way to really invest the time to read those newsletters and pray for those folks, and recognize that when they are stateside, really our desire is to be living over there, right? So our statesides are short or maybe full, and yet I think there's ways that you can connect with missionaries while they're on their stateside assignment. That doesn't necessarily have to be a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night. Those are great when they can happen, but have 10 people over to your home and invite that missionary and let them talk about the work, or have a coffee time with them. And again, invite 5 people. And if 5 people hear their story, that can spread out into your local church. And the desire, the knowledge, the understanding of global work can spread through your church. I think, especially out in California, we're a big state.
Yes.
It takes a long way to travel from place to place, but because of the good institutions that are here, there are IMB missionaries that are coming through a lot, dropping kids off at CBU.
Yeah.
So even if they can't come speak on a Sunday, invite them to, just meet a handful of folks. Sometimes I've found those meetings to be more fruitful even than a Sunday morning.
That is such a good word, because I think sometimes we stymie ourselves thinking, I can't get them on a Sunday, then all is lost, and maybe next time, and who knows when next time is going to be. There are other days in the week and fruit can happen.
Yeah. And those prayer times, I do want to say there's one of our deep partner churches prays for a different missionary kid every Sunday in their Sunday school classes with their kids. There's multiple churches that I know that in their pastoral prayers on Sundays are mentioning people by name, whatever they can do securely, first name or last name only, whatever it is. And don't discount what those times of prayer mean to your people. Just like every meal, you don't remember every meal that you've ever had, but you know you've had them because you're still alive.
Yeah.
Same thing, maybe that one Sunday praying for that missionary might not change someone's life, but praying for a missionary for 104 Sundays in a row might change someone's life. So don't discount those connections as well.
That's really helpful. Let me ask you, as an IMB missionary, real life IMB missionary,
In the flesh.
here with us. We're recording this right now, and we're thick in Lottie Moon Christmas Offering time, right? It's ripe for giving. How meaningful is the Lottie Moon Christmas Offering? How meaningful is Cooperative Program giving to you as a sort of recipient, I guess, of some of this collective, collaborative support that you get from Californians and the whole nation?
Yeah, it's more than vital. It is whatever's more than vital for our lives and ministry. I'm just really grateful. Not just my family's livelihood, my son's schooling or support for his schooling, our medical care, our travel when I was banned from the country and needed to buy a ticket the next day to get on the same side of the world as my family. I was able to buy that ticket and fly to be in the same time zone as my family because of the Lottie Moon Offering and because of the Cooperative Program, and the support from churches in New Jersey to New Orleans to New Mexico. That were supporting us and giving money to support us and praying for us. So it's vital for churches to emphasize that, to give towards that. Not only that, but it really is you give your dollars so that we can be there to help establish healthy churches, to be teaching the gospel to people who don't know the name of Christ or know a false Christ. We're there to establish healthy churches that have meaningful membership, that are doing discipleship in and through the local church, that are seeing leaders raised up, that are seeing men and women able to teach the word and disciple others, that are seeing men raised up to be pastors and to plant more churches. And then the work of starting and strengthening more churches. I'm able to help project manage translating good books on the Trinity, on church membership, on preaching, on biblical counseling issues into national language there because people are giving to the Lottie Moon Christmas Offering, and we get funds from that to help do that. To help us translate books on money or marriage conflict or pornography or a myriad of other discipleship issues that believers, just like believers here are struggling with, believers over there need to be discipled in and supported. So the Lord is sovereign, and He can use many means to do His work, to build His kingdom. But I'm grateful that He's chosen for the last 175 years to use the IMB and Cooperative Program to fuel mission around the world.
Yeah, so really we should be supporting both.
Yes.
Regularly. That's good. Okay, so you're California through and through. You've sort of gone up the California system to the nations. You're back now. What kind of encouraging word do you have for California Baptists, as we think about our role as in the bigger family, supporting missions overseas and their families?
I'm grateful to have grown up in California, born and raised, for many reasons. I think one reason in particular is living in global cities is not as as maybe difficult for me as it is for some of my coworkers who grew up in less diverse contexts.
Yes.
Just again, the Lord and His sovereignty, using that to shape us and prepare us. So I would maybe, to anybody listening, don't discount that as part of your preparation to maybe go overseas, to maybe go cross-culturally.
Yeah.
Every time I come back to California, I'm also just reminded of the great gospel need that is here. 40 million population. That's the size of many countries in my part of the world. And yet I'm also reminded of the great gospel churches that are here. So there's gospel need, but there's gospel preaching churches that are here, that I'm grateful they are here. So I think don't grow weary in doing good. We need more faithful men and women who are able to make disciples. So keep doing the good work of preaching and teaching and discipling. We need more men who are able to plant and pastor churches. We need every California Southern Baptist to have a mindset of it's my role and responsibility to evangelize, to be a witness, to make disciples among all nations. And there's so many nations that are here. That is a reality. I think every time I come back, I see more Muslims in California.
Yep.
That's just an opportunity to reach out, to show the love of Christ, and to proclaim the truth of Christ. So keep laboring, and thank you for your faithful ministry here in California.
Recently on a podcast, I confessed this prayer that I prayed as a little kid when the church that you and I went to, which has always supported missions greatly, brought a missionary in. She told her testimony, and she was in a very scary part of the world, and I prayed so hard and so earnestly, please do not call me to be a missionary. And in my adult life, there's been a little bit of guilt attached to that, like somehow I'm a lesser than Christian because I didn't want to be a missionary.
It's conviction, not guilt. Those are different things.
I've been in ministry my whole life, but somehow because I didn't go overseas, because I didn't want to go overseas, it would somehow fall short, right? Could you please alleviate my guilt a little bit? What is a missionary?
Yes, I don't know if I'll alleviate your guilt. If it's a conviction of the Holy Spirit.
Right.
But I think in one sense, all Christians are responsible to make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey all I have commanded you. That's a full Great Commission right there. So that's a responsibility of all Christians. It's also the responsibility of all Christians to, this is the same thing but said a different way, to be witnesses of what God has done and proclaim that, and specifically corporately, not individualistically, but corporately, we are meant to display and protect and proclaim the gospel together as a body of believers in our local churches, the universal church, but in particularly, as Christ has ordained it, in our local churches. Corporately doing that, being witnesses together as we scatter and then come back and gather. In that, everybody's responsible to make disciples and to witness to the gospel of Jesus Christ. But I would say there are particular people who are sent to be missionaries.
Okay.
That sort of mindset of being a missionary, of always being your antenna up to share the gospel, to see someone in need, to see someone who's maybe different than you that you could reach out to and share the gospel with. That's great. I pray that all Christians have that. But I think it's important to have some sort of distinction between what all believers are called to do, witness, make disciples, have a missionary sort of mindset of going out, but coming back to gather with your local church. To distinguish between that and someone who is set apart, like a Paul and Barnabas sort of way, and sent out from their local church to a place that either is in great need for churches to be strengthened, so they need outside help to be sent to them, or there are no known local churches there, so they need someone to go and establish those churches and train up leaders and see elders raised up and pass that church off as it were. So while I want every Christian to have a missionary mindset, I think it's helpful to have a distinction between those two. I don't know if I would say callings, roles, opportunities to minister.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I think, when Paul's writing those letters, he's writing them to a group of people that are still, holding it down in the sort of at the home front, and they're sending off people.
Which is needed. The great illustration that was used by Andrew Fuller when he sent out William Carey, if you go down into the pit, we will hold the rope. If you haven't learned about their friendship, Andrew Fuller and William Carey and those churches that were in Britain at that time that sent him out, you need to go and study up on that. It would be encouraging for you. But if you think just about physics, I studied history, so I don't know what I'm talking about right now, but I think this is right. If you have someone on the end of a rope in a pit, it takes more people to be at the top to hold the rope.
Yes.
Then they need to outnumber the person that's down in the pit. And in some way, in some sense, that's how we need to think of sending missionaries out. They need to be sent out, but also they need to be sustained. And helping them be sustained on the field almost takes more work and effort and intentionality than the initial sending. They need to be equipped. They need to be qualified before they're sent, however long that takes and the means that the Lord uses in the church and seminaries and other places. But helping someone be sustained long-term on the field might take more intentionality and effort. And therefore, you need people who own that responsibility here on this side and are modeling what that missionary is doing over there here in their own lives.
Yeah.
They're going out, sharing the gospel, making disciples, seeing those people brought into local churches to become faithful members.
And as a communications person, terminology matters, words matter. And if we all called ourselves missionaries, what would we call the people who who went out from?
It means sent one. It means someone sent with a message. So in that sense, we're all sent with a message. But in the way that we talk about it now in modern times, it's helpful to keep the distinction.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree. Well, I'm sure you have a million stories you could share with us, but we always end our show with a funny story. Are you prepared with one?
Most of the funny stories that come to mind for me are ones that have to do with language learning, or cross-cultural stuff.
Right.
Some of it would take a really long time to explain.
Okay.
I'll just say, if you've never learned a language as an adult, kind of on the ground in context, you might not understand this. But if you have, I'm sure folks have experienced these things. But I've told someone before that I'm stabbing you with a raw chicken right now. I've also somehow convinced someone that my dad was a watermelon truck driver when he's not. I was trying to talk about a watermelon, and then somehow they thought I said truck driver, and I was like, no, my dad. They're like, what? Your dad's a watermelon truck driver? And I'm, what? No. And I couldn't get out of it. I was just digging the hole.
Looping around.
I'm just stuck. So there's dozens of stories like that. One maybe final one recently is one of the believers who we had to leave back in the city where we were living. She was writing me. I had sent her a podcast. Thankfully, there's a podcast by a small ministry there, where they talk about theology. It's for evangelism and theology purposes. Sent it to her, and she said, "Oh, you should do something like that. You would be great at it." And I said, well, I couldn't do it in that language, maybe in English, but I couldn't do it. And she went on to say, well, I just remember on Wednesday nights when we were studying Romans and you were teaching us Romans, your wife would always have great things to say. I was like, wait, where is this going? It's like, she would say stuff and it would just help me understand and know God's word so much better. And then sometimes you would say good stuff too. So that's typical. If you know my wife, you're not surprised by that.
No,
she
not at
said
all.
the really wise, profound thing, and I was just there talking a lot.
She probably knew that you were being confusing.
Right, yeah. She's like, let me clarify for him, everybody.
I'm still trying to figure out how you stab anybody with a raw chicken. Like a frozen chicken, that makes sense to me, but a raw chicken, it's so floppy.
This word that they use, it's not for a live chicken. It only means dead chicken that's ready to be cooked. And I said, I'm stabbing you with it. And that's because I didn't mean to say that.
I'm hoping.
Yeah. It sounded similar to another word. So anyway.
What of that was accurate? The stabbing or the raw chicken?
This was in a language learning class, I should say. I wasn't trying to stab anybody with anything. In reality, I was trying to say I'm stabbing you with a sword.
Oh, okay. So stabbing was
Stabbing
accurate.
was a part of it. I was trying to say I'm stabbing you. Yes. Yeah. Just not with a raw chicken. That would be hard to do.
That's fantastic. Thank you for making the drive up here. I know that was a sacrifice, and I think our California Southern Baptist leaders are so much better for it. I so appreciate you. I can't even tell you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, as always, everybody, we have an email address, podcast@csbc.com. Thanks for listening. Bye.